Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, we begin with the latest on the suspect accused of killing UnitedHealth CEO Brian Thompson. Bloomberg's John Tucker joins us with the very latest. John?
And good morning, Nathan. UnitedHealth Group says suspected gunman Luigi Mangione wasn't a member of its insurance plans. That seems to dispel the idea he was allegedly motivated by a grievance from his personal experience with the nation's largest health insurer. Meantime, prosecutors are now bringing evidence before a grand jury seeking an indictment to strengthen their case for his return to New York. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg.
We will get the defendant here.
Well, Mangione fighting extradition to New York, where he's facing murder charges. Since the shooting, people speculated about whether the gunman was a customer upset over a denied medical claim or other insurance problem. Mangione's own history of back pain and surgery, revealed in online postings and reporting from people who spent time with him, prompted questions about how his experience with the medical system might have driven him to allege violence. It appears his grievances were more broad-based. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thank you. Well, we turn to politics now, and President-elect Trump has voiced support for the Dockworkers union as the union considers whether to strike again. And we get more from Bloomberg's Doug Krisner.
Back in October, the union shut ports on the East and Gulf Coast until the Biden administration helped negotiate a temporary deal to keep those ports open. Now, that agreement between the union and shipping companies and terminal operators expires on January 15th, and the use of semi-automated cranes has yet to be resolved. After meeting with union leaders, Trump said the amount of money saved is nowhere near the distress, hurt, and harm it causes American workers. The employers group has said the technology does not harm longshore employment, and such modernization is necessary to keep U.S. ports and the broad economy competitive. In New York, I'm Doug Krisner, Bloomberg Radio.
Thank you, Doug. President-elect Trump might also have a tax break in mind for residents of high-tax states like New York and New Jersey. Trump's economic advisors have discussed doubling the deduction for state and local taxes known as SALT from $10,000 to $20,000. Stephen Moore, who sits on Trump's economic team, tells Bloomberg they won't lift the cap entirely because that would amount to what he calls the biggest tax cut ever for millionaires and billionaires. Bloomberg government's Kate Ackley says any change to the SALT deduction could be tough to get through a narrowly divided Congress.
This is going to be extremely narrow margins. There are going to be times when the Republicans are down, a few votes because people are going into the Trump administration. So, it's going to be a nail biter, and this will definitely be at the top of the list of things that they're wrangling over.
Bloomberg government's Kate Ackley notes it was then President Trump's 2017 tax law that limited the SALT deduction to $10,000.
Meanwhile, Nathan, President-elect Trump's team may be looking to take an axe to bank regulation. According to a report in the Wall Street Journal, officials from Trump's Department of Government Efficiency have talked about shrinking, merging, or even eliminating agencies like the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC. Any proposal to get rid of an agency would need congressional approval. Bank executives are hopeful the Trump administration will ease regulations on capital requirements and consumer protections. But touching federal deposit insurance could be politically tricky.
Well, Karen, President-elect Trump had a chance to tout his economic plans during a visit to the New York Stock Exchange.
We're cutting your taxes. We're going to cut them very substantially. We got them down to 21% from probably 42 or 44%, depending on where you are. And we got them down to 21. Everyone said that was a miracle. Now we're getting them down to 15, but only if you make your product here. Otherwise, you pay 21, which is not bad. It's in the middle of the pack.
The president-elect rang the opening bell on Wall Street to celebrate being named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. He told CNBC he sees the market as a gauge of his success. In his words, quote, "To me, the stock market is all of it."
Well, Nathan, another high-tech giant is donating to President-elect Donald Trump's inaugural fund. Amazon is joining Meta Platforms and contributing $1 million. Besides the direct donation, Amazon is also streaming the inauguration as an in-kind donation worth $1 million. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is also meeting with Trump next week.
Elon Musk is renewing his long-standing feud with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Karen, Musk posted a letter saying the agency is investigating his brain-computer interface company Neuralink. The letter also says the SEC is preparing to take action against Musk related to his investment in Twitter before he bought the platform in 2022. The regulator has been examining the timing and disclosure of Musk's purchase of Twitter stock before he acquired the company. The letter says the agency gave Musk a 48-hour deadline to accept a settlement over the probe or face enforcement action. The SEC declined to comment.
Meanwhile, Nathan Cantor Fitzgerald's Howard Lutnick has agreed to pay almost $7 million to settle SEC allegations that it misled investors in two blank check firms before their stock market debuts. The firm controlled two special purpose acquisition companies that raised $750 million. Cantor claimed they had not had substantive talks with potential merger targets, when in reality the SEC says they started negotiations. The firm settled without admitting to or denying the allegations.
Turning to politics overseas, Karen, French President Emmanuel Macron is due to name a new prime minister this morning. Macron missed his self-imposed deadline to replace Michel Barnier, whose government was ousted in a no-confidence vote after just 3 months. Bloomberg senior editor Phil Serafino says Macron is aiming to create a centrist coalition.
All the reporting from the past week or so indicates that he's trying to bring the Socialist Party into a coalition of centrist parties, center-left, center-right, and sort of leave the far-left and far-right parties out on their own.
Bloomberg's Phil Serafino says France, the European Union's second-largest economy, has been plunged into political uncertainty after failing to pass a budget for 2025.
Nathan, the UK economy has unexpectedly shrunk for a second consecutive month, slipping 0.1%. It means the economy has only grown in one of the 4 months since Labour took power, compounding a shaky start since their landslide victory in the July election.
Back here in the U.S., Karen, shares of Broadcom are up more than 14.5% in early trading. The chip supplier for Apple and other big tech companies is predicting a boom in demand for its artificial intelligence chips. Investors have piled into Broadcom stock this year, lured by AI optimism. With this morning's gains, the stock is up more than 80% this year.
And Nathan, Costco posted quarterly profit that beat expectations. The big box retailer reported more members during the quarter, and about 90% of existing members renewed their service. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. There's no threat to the public, and they may not even be drones. That's the response from White House National Security spokesman John Kirby on the growing concerns about flying objects flying over various towns in northern New Jersey at night. Kirby says there's no evidence that the reported sightings pose a national security or public safety threat or have a foreign connection.
The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels.
He says whatever is flying over people's homes at night appear to be manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. Those statements aren't sitting well with Mine Hill, New Jersey Mayor Sam Morris, who is among dozens of local and state leaders demanding an investigation from federal officials.
I have to tell you, that's incredulous. I'm incredulous about that. That is ridiculous. I would invite Mr. Kirby to Mine Hill. Come on out, Mr. Kirby. And let's go on out one night about 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'll go out behind my town hall, and you can count them with me all night.
Senators from New York and New Jersey are also expressing urgent concern. One person has died after a small plane crashed on a highway in Westchester County last night. According to New York State Police, the crash shut down I-684 in Harrison. Another person in the plane that took off from Linden, New Jersey, is hospitalized in serious condition. New York Mayor Eric Adams met with Tom Homan, Donald Trump's incoming border czar. Adams says he plans to use executive orders to assist the federal government with the arrest and deportation of undocumented immigrants who have repeatedly committed violent crimes in the sanctuary city.
Our legal team is vetting. Do we have the authorization to sit down and speak with ICE legal team to operationalize what both our desires are?
Adams went on to say the city is not going to be a safe haven for those who commit repeated violent crimes against innocent migrants, immigrants, and long-standing New Yorkers. Finally, Cambodia is calling it a milestone in the improvement with U.S. ties. The U.S. will send a warship to visit a naval base in Cambodia for the first time since the Southeast Asian nation reportedly signed a deal in 2019 that would allow China to establish a permanent foothold there. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg, Karen.
All right, Michael Barr, thank you. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update, brought to you by Tri-State Audi. Here's John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. 4 days after winning the highest scoring game in the NFL this season, 44-42, the LA Rams won one of the lowest, 12-6 over the 49ers, a game without a touchdown. The Niners held only 11 first downs, under 200 yards of offense. The Rams at 8-6, very much in it for either the division or a wild card. The Niners at 6-8, pretty much out of it. Devils and Islanders both won at home. New Jersey 3-1 over LA. Jack Hughes in on all 3 goals, and the Isles blew most of a 5-1 lead, held on 5-4 over Chicago. Capitals won 2-1 at Columbus. Bruins lost 5-1 in Seattle. Celtics improved to 20-5, blew out Detroit by 24. Juan Soto put on his Mets number 22 jersey. If he stays a Met throughout the contract, he'll be wearing it until 2040. When asked why he chose the Mets, Soto brought up their recent success.
The Mets is a great organization, and what they have done in the past couple of years, showing all the ability to keep winning, to keep growing a team, to try to grow a dynasty is one of the most important things.
So if the Mets continued on the course they started out on this past season, they may not have gotten Soto. They, of course, turned things around, ended up in the NLCS. Bill Belichick was in Chapel Hill saying his new job in North Carolina is a dream come true. From 1975 through 2023, Belichick never missed a season of NFL coaching. Now, after a year off, he's going back to work.
I love coaching. I love the interaction with the players. I love building a team, working with the assistants, game planning, the game itself, which, there's some good ones, there's some bad ones, but they're all learning experience and working with, young kids who, with the energy, enthusiasm to want to be good, to want to be successful.
Army-Navy game tomorrow, and the Heisman Trophy goes out tomorrow night. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. President-elect Donald Trump is touting his economic agenda as he gets closer to inauguration. He did it in a celebratory mood during his visit to the New York Stock Exchange.
The economy, I believe, is going to be very strong. We do have to solve some problems. We have wars going on that we didn't have. We have a lot of things happening that we didn't have that would have never happened. They would have never happened, but now they have happened.
And at least one problem that could happen next month is a strike on the docks. And the president-elect is weighing in on that and more as well. Joining us to discuss it is Bloomberg News senior editor Bill Ferries. Bill, I'm sure you saw the social media post from Trump saying he met with the Dockworkers union that shut down the ports back in October. What to make of it? Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Nathan. Yeah, very interesting post from the president-elect there, really throwing a lot of support behind the Longshoremen's Association. That's the Dockworkers union that, as you mentioned, was on strike in October, just a month before the election. They kind of reached an agreement, if you remember back then, kind of kicking the can down the road. The workers agreed to take basically a 61% pay raise in their next 6-year contract, but they really didn't finalize that contract. They said, we'll get past the election, we'll set a deadline of mid-January, and then we'll try to reach agreement on a whole range of issues. The big sticking point has been the use of increased automation at U.S. ports that the union is worried are going to put people out of business. Donald Trump coming in saying he's sided with the workers. He understands their concerns about automation. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The two sides have not been able to reach an agreement on this issue. So potentially, when we're talking about January 15th, we're talking about 5 days before Donald Trump gets sworn in. So it remains to be seen whether this will really help spur the two sides in action or to reach an agreement, or whether we're really going to go up to right up to the cliff again in January.
So while the president-elect is sort of touting this sort of populist message in this post, he also could be thinking of throwing a bone to voters in high-tax states once again with talk about lifting the cap on the SALT deduction bill.
Yeah, it sounds like some of Trump's top economic advisors are now looking at that SALT tax, that state and local tax deduction, getting raised potentially from the $10,000 cap up to $20,000. Still a lot of details there that we don't know, and it would require congressional action. But this is really, there's some irony here. The $10,000 SALT deduction, that was what came in as part of Trump's 2017 tax overhaul. It was super unpopular, even with Republicans in higher tax states like New York in particular, New Jersey, but also just broadly with people in Southern California, for instance. Any places where the property taxes or the state taxes are high, that was an issue. So they are looking at trying to ease that cap. I think what, big picture here, what this really shows is how important a one seat or how weak a one seat majority can be. One or two Congress people after Trump takes office, one or two Republicans can really prevent his legislation from going through. So I think this is kind of an attempt to satisfy some of those demands. I suspect even Republican lawmakers in places like New York are going to be maybe looking for more than just $20,000 as the deduction.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak, your morning podcast on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 92.9 in Boston, and nationwide on Sirius XM Channel 121.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, now with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto interfaces.
And don't forget to subscribe to Bloomberg News Now. It's the latest news whenever you want it, in 5 minutes or less. Search Bloomberg News Now on your favorite podcast platform to stay informed all day long. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.